It was a bright day when Vern, Lyria, the captain, and I went back to the studio.
Crazy how you invited yourself to the studio to see my sister's paintings. And now you're her personal pharmacist. Serendipity's funny like that.
If you feel like repaying me, how about you finally...
That's a fair... Everything in the studio was painted by Schnee. Feel free to get close.
Previously, I had managed only a distracted glance at the studio's walls. I wasn't an expert on art. But even I felt the vibrant energy, and one painting in particular. Sketches were littered about the floor, too. And even they were filled with vitality.
Oh yeah! About that pigment I bought when we met.
Taking the vial from a shelf, Heimel poured the pigment into a dish and mixed it with oil. A few takes a specialty product to me. Heimel smiled and handed the freshly prepared paint to Schnee.
I believe in Schnee's talent. Look at her. She's...
It's nice having... I meant it.
I never know how to read your tone. But, well...
Heimel, who clearly had never known abundance, smiled like the richest of merchants. If only I could go back and tell my own sister. I hoped these siblings, at least, would understand what they meant to one another. I even prayed a little. Which was dumb, considering that... Lyria and Vern became a regular fixture at the studio. They said they want... I felt much the same. Her pieces were charming, but my true reason for visiting was out of concern, not interest. She was battling an unpredictable...
Could you stick around for a few?
You dare waste my time with your foolish air. After Heimel left, Schnee
After all you've done...
Her voice quivered.
I don't know if I could say this.
Tears began to gloss her...
Without me holding him back, he could find someone and settle down.
I interrupted her. I don't condone this, and I doubt your brother would. Look, I've been in your shoes. There was nothing the village or the dying hope was cheap. It was better to look inevitable. There was one person who stood beside me. She was with me the entire time, keeping me warm in the shadow. I continued to detail memories of my sister. Over tooth, she hung on to every... When I concluded my story, to my disappointment...
How did you get...
Simple. The curse of genius. I developed an entire... I couldn't suppress a proud... She nodded along, not quite understanding. I couldn't blame her. Imagine your body is a jar and your soul...
You can do that?
Schnee cupped her... Don't insult me. There's not... She grew silent as gears began to whir in her head.
Could you...
Well, but... I could relate to her, but if you really want to go through with this, it wasn't going to be simple. The soul swap was messy on an experienced out. It could very well be a fast track to the grave. And Schnee had no knowledge of the arcane, and she was struggling to grasp these factors. So I opted for a simpler route. Even if your memories, knowledge, and personality make the jump, you will never feel the same. Take, for example, the sky. We each paint it in our own way. One may clumsily blob some white on a blue background, while others might choose a deeper hue. Even I, genius that I am, finally, it means you won't be human.
But...
Schnee looked down at her hands. It was never an easy decision. Even my sister begged me not to abandon my mortality. The silence was deafening. Shanae was considering her path. There's no reason you have to make up your mind now. As long as you I turned to leave.
Wait! I don't care about losing my art. If it will free Heimel to—
Her tears were pierced. She bore the pain of losing her, even with my infinite understanding of the— You sure you don't want to? She shook her head. I led her down this path because I, on some level, felt we were alike in our suffering, if anything. Just like how my own sister, after leaving the studio, I made a list of all the materials the procedure would— I had my sights set on the Pillar of Vayoi. Due to the high
Wait till you see! Shnae's paintings are breathtaking.
Curse that proud face of yours, Heimel.
Cagliostro, on the move! Cagliostro's coming for your cores, Mr. and Mrs. Spirit People!
And while I'm at it, I might pick up a few alchemical reagents in the process.
Let's go, gang!
Great. This won't help anyone.
Yeah.
Useless trash.
Yay! This'll do the trick! Look at all those spirits! What do you call a group of them anyway? A herd? A flock?
I call it target practice.
Hooray! Find your skeepers! Sounds like we're making good time.
Great. This won't help anyone. Useless trash.
Cagliostro knows everybody wants to cuddle up to her, but you're icky!
No way up.
There might still be something we can use. Head back to check, just in case.
Ribbon, tie. Spells, ready. Components, gathered. Hooray!
That's it for all of our elemental components. Now, if only we can track down an effigy. Next, meet the blast you and the alchemic dust.
I think I'm starting to feel sorry for the spirit. The last one! Get him!
Excellent. Throw a few spirit guts in the old extractor, and we'll have prime crystals on our hands.
What now? Don't worry about it, Mr. Lizard. Wanna head back to town? Yeah. Too cute to handle. Too smart to beat.
When we returned to the studio,
Shnae told me everything. Please.
we were shocked to hear his refusal. I'd like to hear the reason from her mouth. He grimaced.
Shnae has dreamed of being a successful artist ever.
In his fervent voice, you could hear how long he'd been supporting his sister.
Finally, Shnae will be recognized for her talent.
I wasn't sure whether he was gritting
Sinead's been waiting so long for this!
Because you deserve to live your—
brother and sisters.
I've never thought of you as a burden.
No one doubted his. More than anything, he wanted Shanae's effort. If her dreams were so close to coming true, he reasoned that he'd never been in Shanae's position before.
Good day.
Shanae's attitude changed.
Cagliostro, forgive me. I was so—
Figures. You needed time. Actually, that was the reason why I asked Heimel about his objections.
We're sorry for wasting your time. We know it,
New body?
but you said you would give Schnee.
I reached into my pocket and pulled out a bottle of pills, and I present to you my genius medicine for slowing the progress of Lycerian fever syndrome. I calculate it's 3 times more effective than the...
Wait, Cagliostro?
It wasn't obvious? I needed some stronger base. My crewmates looked at me with irritation. But while we're on the topic, I did a little more research. Experts say that ley lines rebalance themselves after a number...
Cagliostro. How?
Janae was so overcome with emotion. I didn't mind her silence, though. Right. So about payment. The founder of Heimel swallowed.
I'm a fool. You're absolutely right.
I think there's been a misunderstanding. Janae and Heimel both nodded. Seeing harmony restored to the studio... Sometime later, you have my payment from...
Sure do.
From behind the counter. Zero clear skin. Dewy...
Not that I have to explain it to you. Lots of folks have said they'd like to buy...
Of course. Who wouldn't want a port...
I was surprised to hear you knew Lady Sh...
Wait.
Indeedy. Youngest artist declared a...
I had seen it before. It filled me with a resonant... I think... In all my years of filling vessels with spirits...
Are you sure?
I laughed. A few million rupees for a miracle? Chump change. Unbeknownst to...
Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a lone swordsman famed for his two swords. Whenever he appeared in town, prospective fighters began to seek out the swordsman. Amongst them, some were so strong they could crush warships with a... So the master abandoned the battlefield for the mountain. There was one disciple who quickly stood. It took her only a matter of days to master the most complex, but more impressive than her wits or her Every day, the top disciple begged for harder training. And that's why. Why? Oshka, she went rogue. Eventually, the master caught up with her. And it was a bittersweet victory, as the master knew what must come next. He readied his blade. Thus, he laid down his weapon, and oh, how our good... Having thrown away his name, his blade, and his path. Time passed, and the swordsman found him fast for breakfast, salmon for supper, and naps in between. It was the quiet, healing. Sometimes, when he needed supplies, he would go down to the village and train. But this peace, he discovered his top disciple was back to her wicked ways. This was his true purpose for traveling with the crew. Though the young captain never suspected the little Harvan fisherman was harboring such a dark secret. The former disciple's latest victim had been a simple man from a remote mountain area. A real shame that the swordsman asked the crew to make... When he saw the murdered man's corpse, it was his weakness, his cowardice, that cost this poor man's life. He called it his burial garb, and it represented his fearlessness on the battlefield. If he were... Of course, his crewmates tried to reason with him, concerned he might throw his... But the swordmaster was determined. He had vowed to stop. So, when finally before he could do the deed, however, his resolve crumbled. His emotion... The master's former youngest disciple, with his two newest pupils. Ironically, it was the youngest... The swordsman was lost in grief. But his newfound champion told him this was for the best. After joining up with the crew, so when we arrived in Zegar Grande, I found a nice, quiet pond, and finally I decided to pull up my rod and check if the bait was still hard. Right, well, what about me traps? But it was too late in the noon to go back for 'em, and I had other business to attend to, like getting back to the pond and staring in that moment of stillness. The fishies swam out of their... Each of my disciples was unique in their own right. Had me some slow learners and some... My top student, Grace, never wavered in her particular sense of range. My youngest pupil lost his way for decades after leaving my tutelage. But they say the master extracts potential from the student. But I fear I've ruined I turned Grace into a monster. Not a day goes by I don't regret honing her skill. If only I had focused more on the why. Huh? I swore I felt a nibble at my rod, but... They pulled... That was odd. I was getting antsy. Maybe it was because I forgot the trap. You see, the mind is like a creek. You want to keep it healthy. You gotta keep the waters from stagnating. I decided to head to Sierra's shack and replace some fishing gear, hopefully restoring my brain pond in the process. And to my surprise, they were my crewmen. Said they were bored at the inn and asked if they could come fishing with me. While I was hammering out the finer points of fly casting with the captain, I'd heard rumors like this one before, and they always stank like fish guts. Catching 10 fish with one cast, netting a whole consortium of crabs. By yourself? Yeah. If I had a fin for every story like this, then again, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued. There's a scale of truth. Yes, you might say my interest, because if this fellow were half as good as me, he'd make a mighty fine... After some consideration, I decided I would test my mettle against this. I asked around town where I might find such a rival, but he proved the others garnered about the same information, which only no matter who we asked, we couldn't. All we learned was that he was skilled, able to catch 10 fish with one cast, yada yada, with only tales of his escapades to feed us. And we needed to change our approach and re-examine the facts. All of the stories were about places he visited. With that in mind, we enlisted. Sure enough, after a few days' time, she gave us a map dotted like it had the chicken pox. So the old fart got around, did he? After staring at the map for a while, I realized there was one place conspicuously with going off my hunch. Sierra Carte did a little more digging around, and the chase was on. Move it or lose it, folks. Now, where's this fisher god? Reel him in!
Ah! We're monsters!
That's no good. Did we wake the spirits of this land? Whoop the gun.
Are you really gonna fish in a dangerous place like this?
Of course! We're not dealing with your average angler here. This is a fisher god we're after. Now, he should have left supplies or tracks or something. Keep your eyes peeled for him.
Okay,
It's
but
curtain
we
for
better
ya.
be careful while we search. Those are the ones that explode if you beat them too hard.
Certain as death!
We've come pretty far. Just keep killing me.
Just a matter of time before we're there. Now hop to it.
Whoa! I see somebody. Maybe it's the Fisher God.
Very well could be. Give him a hello and see what's up.
Hey there. Can we talk a minute? Hey, mister.
What's it?
What fish?
We fish, therefore they are. It's the deepest water.
The proverb left his lips like a right prophet.
I still don't get...
And that's your problem.
His answer was cryptic, but it had its own logic. Clear water or molten rock. Guess I've... Those unblinking eyes. That unrelenting hunger for the catch. His tools were top-notch, but I didn't come to admire. May we presume you?
And to...
What do you say to a little fish up?
Ah, now there's...
And thus...
Hello.
We fish, therefore they are. It was a profound statement. Hang your line thinking you won't catch anything, and you won't notice even the heftiest bite. Determination was the most essential. Then again, we were sat up next to a lava lake. And
Someone came prepared.
I strung a special hook, carved from a flame worm's tooth, to a special line, spun from its mane.
Whoa!
The captain, Vern, and Lyria were stunned as I cast my rod into the...
Just what?
Vern's voice was filled with confusion. Oh, upon...
Meat!
The Fisher God, but the fish living inside the lava weren't no slouches neither. They were covered in armor like scales, and when we pulled them ashore, there, so as our piles of molten fish gradually turned to hills, then soon enough, our swordbacks told us it was time. We counted each fish as we threw them back into the lava. Their physiology meant they couldn't be cooked. Don't want no sulfur in my sushi anyway. But they...
Should have known you'd be a shark.
Just trying to keep... It was a rare thing to meet your match. The smiles on our faces. Vern flew up to...
Do all old dudes fish like that?
The Fisher God and I locked eyes.
Sounds like the gauntlet.
Agreed.
Then you won't mind.
He told us about a few local legendary fish that had eluded. We agreed the winner would be the first to trap one of them fabled guppies, the old spark. Now I just had to track me down a living, swimming myth. Turns out there were few eyewitness accounts of such fish. Guess they didn't like flashing their scales as much as the fisher, so back to Sierra we went. She kindly asked the Fisherman's Guild. They told us of a potential target. A beautiful fish, said to have the luck as if to tempt me more. We learned the locals called it the jewel fin. Catching it would be like grabbing a... Surely it was a fool. Too bad. A being that existed somewhere between Thus, in the coming days, whenever I found a went to salt lakes where a sip of the water would dry you to the bone. Wandered around underground streams where you couldn't see Captain, Lyria, and Vern and company. I wouldn't force them. I had planned to make the trip alone anyhow. All I wanted to... It was a good sign, honestly. They say anticipation exists right before accomplishment. And this fish-off was a duel to the death for me and the Fisher God. But I knew I didn't have forever. We were in this skydom for a reason, and that mission had to take precedence. I decided my next search would be the last. It brought me to... I heard that somewhere inside was a spring turned monster den. One look at its bewitching twinkle would be enough to drive a man mad, and he'd throw himself into the pool to be swallowed, relying on those exaggerated claims for guidance. I braved the forested depths to this, but still, I cast my rod, and Verna Swamp remained quiet. I was neither overcome with anticipation nor bored from it. I tugged the fish to the surface and began to... Turns out none of the scholars' descriptions were quite... How's this for a catch? I proudly displayed its scales glistened in iridescent waves.
Slap my behind.
That was a delicious... But of course, the Fisher God was a fisherman of... It was a large fish, obsidian in color, whose scales seemed to drink the light...
Whoa! 2 legendary fish? Isn't that...
Both of our catches fit the criteria of the comp. Guess we couldn't complain, no? Not if still. Something had to be done.
I think both are amazing. Can't we just say you're both incredible?
Guess 2 legendary fish don't make a champion. Especially... Nope. It didn't sit right with me. Our rivalry pushed the craft of fishing. Vern saw the determination.
You guys aren't gonna let this...
Lyria pondered.
How about whoever fishes up the most happiness?
A genius suggestion. This island was under Avia's control. Terra, it was settled. We would go with after a nod to one another. Keep up if y'all can. Hope we come across a good fishing spot.
In this blizzard, how are you gonna even see your rod?
Ancient technique.
Wow!
I can hear running water. You think this here hole has a river at the bottom?
Green butter stinks.
We're just looking to fish. What if you want to be a sushi platter? Step right up. That's the sauce.
Can fish even live in weather this cold?
The colder the weather, the better the fish. Make some good barbecue.
Ooh, that's neat. You learn something cool every day.
Ooh, that spot looks swell. This place is perfect. Let's get started.
Holy crap! Looks like the monsters caught our scent.
Curse their timing. I'll clean them up right quick.
Whew. That takes care of that.
I wouldn't be so sure. Looks like we got a big fella on our hands next.
For real? We don't have time for this.
Yep. And judging by its bad attitude, I don't think it's gonna let us leave without a fight.
It's right there!
Now this here's a sight. chest and arm all warmed up. Oh, I hope we didn't scare off the fish. Ha! Still in my golden years. Results day had arrived. Residents of Seed Hollow were gathering, waiting to see what bounty we could share.
Feast your eyes!
The Fisher God took to the podium. The largest fish in this skydom strung up behind him. The crowd was wowed by the sheer scale of the thing, and I was no exception. Should have known he'd come out with eye on the other fin. Tookity hold! I sure wasn't gonna win through size, but maybe superior numbers would do the trick. Next, the Fisher God and I began to fillet our catches, sharing sushi.
The Brave Beam is delicious. And how
The
does...
Shellman is just as good. It's so...
Everywhere we looked, there were people enjoying. But since it was a competition, next up was evaluations. One after the other, the votes piled up for the... But there was a special reason I chose to serve the Shellman.
Shall we call it there?
I gotta hand it to you, Fisher God. You served some... While I was talking, a cute little scamp, snot running down...
You didn't want to vote for the big...
It was too big and scary.
The Fisher God's breath caught for a moment, and I knew.
Hello.
The Fisher God bowed his... But before I could humbly accept his withdrawal...
Looking at the votes.
Not at all. Without this master of the rod opposite me...
He spoke from the heart.
It's ordinary fish, ones we consume daily, that bring us health and happiness. Delicacies shine because they're a rare treat. But well-being is built on
He continued.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, a child's smile will do more for a village's well-being than...
A smirk sat on his lips as he turned to me.
Congratulations, Yadara. Even had I won this competition, I concede in our fish-off. You are... I've learned much from our duel. I think...
Never in my day. And you, good sir. Hell, after the voting had concluded, both Brave Bream and Shellman were a hit. But, as all good things must come to an end, so too did the feast. I turned to the Fisher God, a gleam in my eye. And you want a race to see who can get this place spick and span? We were no longer rivals. We were brothers of the rod. We were shopping at Sierro's when the merchant apparently should have been waiting on us, ready to share the latest...
A certain rumor swam earlier this month. You see, people are seeing their...
Vern and Lyria gasped in surprise. You know, I never... Sounds like quite the handsome...
Please come again.